I document a lot of what I do. I take pictures of random stuff and video mundane moments of my life, often without really knowing why. But sometimes it pays off, and it suddenly looks like I had it all planned out like some genius mastermind. This video is one of those times where it paid off, though it did take 8 years. It's November the 5th, 2011. Skyrim comes out in 6 days. I'm trying to figure out what makes the Doctor Who theme tune so dank, and I'm intimidating my dad with my character's bare-bones build.
Hello Philip, how are you?
I'm okay, thanks. Just need to dry my hair.
Oh yes. You can put some trousers on as well.
But I'm also working on another character build. I never completed Oblivion. I had developed bad habits from Morrowind that made me jump everywhere, levelling up my character in such a way that enemies in Oblivion levelled faster than I did, to the point where it would take thousands of sword blows to kill even the lowliest of enemies. Before Skyrim came out, I wanted to say that I had beaten Oblivion, so I created a character and maxed out his build to be as powerful as possible, and I called him Odgrub the Basher. Long story short, I maxed out his stats, then he died in the first battle, and I gave up and moved on to Skyrim. But I stuck with the same character. If you'd like to know, I uploaded my maxed out Oblivion build online. Anyway, with Odgrub in Skyrim, I intended to play normally as him, but eventually he became super OP, and with it, Odgrub's purpose had come a full circle. But in the early days, a lot of Skyrim's quests were broken, and I wanted to finally beat them, so I started again as Odgrub II. I maxed out his smithing, alchemy and enchanting, and that pretty much brings us up to the first Odgrub video, which I made to celebrate Skyrim's 7th anniversary last year. Intended to be a tutorial to show how to exploit Skyrim's mechanics to make a super powerful character, I got a bit carried away trying to make the intro better than the Skyrim video I had done the year before. Then realised that was a lot more fun than trying to do a tutorial and extended his murderous spree throughout the whole video. I considered that the best video I had ever made and didn't plan on making a sequel, so I killed him off at the end. And then I immediately set to work on a sequel. This isn't unusual for me. One thing I'm good at is doing the exact opposite of what I've previously said. A more recent example, I've argued that in stories, death should be final. After all, if death doesn't end a character's story, then what can? In my opinion, reviving dead characters belittles the significance and finality of death and cheapens any later deaths in the story. But after having said all that, Odgrub's now died and come back to life twice. Don't listen to me, I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, for the sequel to the Odgrub video, I thought up a story involving Lydia and Odgrub's redemption. But one thing led to another, the sequel reached 10 minutes long and I realised I hadn't even started on the storyline. So I put the story on hold and just made the second video something different, with plans for that video reserved for the third Odgrub video. But I'm pleased I planned it so long in advance, because it gave me months to think about it and how it would all piece together. A really enjoyable part of working on a big project like this is the elaborate storyboard you create for it in your head. You start with all these things you know you want to throw into the story, and one by one, you piece them together and try to form a coherent plot out of them. It becomes this hugely intricate thing that only exists in your own head. You flesh it out and begin throwing it about in your mind in extreme detail. And occasionally it comes out when somebody asks you about it and you respond with 10 minutes of incoherent babbling about your current thoughts about various plot points. For the third Odgrub story, I wanted the redemption plot. I also wanted Lydia to have her own story and conclusion. I wanted to complete the main quest for Skyrim, and I also needed to throw the Ebony Warrior in there as a boss fight of some sort. So in my head I spent months trying to combine all these separate stories in the most efficient and logical way possible. I occasionally worried that I'd forget something important, so would email myself reminders about certain things. But you know what? I never forgot. In fact, by the time I read the email, I had already built on the suggestions so much more in my head that the suggestions seemed all like, duh, obviously. There are always things you don't think about until you get around to actually making them, even with all the planning in the world. A video like this is half about planning and half about getting on and playing the game and seeing what kinds of weird and wonderful things happen. So I got to work on Odgrub 3. I make these videos chronologically, starting at the beginning scene and ending with the last. This helps the continuity and gives me time to alter later bits of the storyline based on what unexpected things happen as I'm recording it. All 3 Odgrub videos can be split into roughly minute-long segments, which work as their own standalone sketches, but which, when put together, tell a larger story. I think this is important on YouTube. People are easily bored, so telling the story in small segments means that boring bits are hastily moved on from, and even if you close the video halfway through, you've already seen a number of satisfyingly concluded sections. So let's begin. I'll now show the whole video from start to finish, talking over it and pausing it at points. This is a newer version than the official one that I uploaded to YouTube the other week. There are always last minute changes and finishing touches that miss the deadline. But now you'll get to see them. Just like with the Going Low series, the intro of the Odgrub videos takes longer than any other bit of the video for me to make. It's the first thing the viewer sees, and it needs to be good. Also, it's the bit of the video that I'll watch the most times and will make the most revisions too. I think the first Odgrub video has the best intro since it grabs your attention straight away. The second and third are more cinematic. They pay off if you watch the first minute or so, but if you're immediately expecting something exciting, then you'll be disappointed with them, and it will likely put you off the video. Sadly, this is the problem with YouTube. There's so much content vying for your attention that I think a video will be judged within the first few seconds. I wouldn't be surprised if people were put off the Odgrub video, saying that it's 40 minutes long and expecting it to be low effort, uncut content. But hey, I'm not making these to be successful YouTube videos. I'm making them to be the best videos that I can make. Hence, cinematic intro. You may have seen the trailer for the Ebony Warrior. That starts a bit differently from the final video, and that's because my damn PC stopped recording at 4K and only captured it at 1440p. And I was all like, hang on, this isn't as clear as I'd like it to be. And I had to try and recreate that clip, but the dragon kept flying off and never coming back. It took a while, but I'm happy with the recording I finally got. But it took a hell of a lot of colour correction to make it not look like an orange haze. And then we get onto this walking montage. For the story to work, people have to like Lydia. So I tried to give her as much screen time during the first 15 minutes as I could. This intro was easy to do with Skyrim's camera. Nicely builds up to the massacre in Whiterun, shows Odgrub leading, while letting Lydia do her duties and fighting for her beloved Odgrub. Not that it matters, but the massacre begins because Odgrub can't stand to hear another arrow in the knee joke.
I used to be an adventurer like you, and I took an arrow.
I don't think this intro is as good as the second videos, but it introduces the viewers to Lydia, Odgrub, and to the Ebony Warrior. Not sure if anybody else noticed this, but he blows Lydia away in this scene, and that's why she isn't shown for the rest of the sequence. How do you one-up killing children? You incinerate an innocent animal. Bit of a cop-out because it's all just a dream, but I thought that beheading previously invincible Odgrub was the only way to show the viewer that he may have finally met his match. Now we're on to the boring second minute of the video. All three Odgrub videos suffer from a slow talky bit at around this point, but it's required to set the story up. The whole video can't just be mindless killing. 8 years have passed since the second video. If you round it up, that's how long I've had Odgrub's character, and also the length of time between the two Dark Knight films. Just saying. It's always difficult knowing what to say and what to leave for the audience to figure out, but I thought that Lydia's relationship with Odgrub was worth stating. Don't want people confused about the story this early on. Lydia is still alive after having served Odgrub for 8 years. That in itself says so much about these two characters. I told the story from Lydia's perspective, because I prefer that Odgrub's mind is left a rather mysterious place. A big theme early on when developing this video was old age. I wanted to give the impression that Odgrub's no longer as powerful as he once was. Old age adds as a deadline to his story, and a real sense of vulnerability. I think it's sad to see a famous warrior becoming just a shadow of his former self. An early viewer also said his struggle against the Greybeards later on showed how weak he's become, which wasn't something I had done intentionally. In my opinion, the Greybeards are simply plot-armoured badasses. Anyway, when making this video I felt that Odgrub had grown weaker, but having seen the final thing, nah, it's not shown at all. Lazier maybe, but if old age does hinder him, it definitely feels like it comes after this video rather than during. But it does give fans of Odgrub an excuse for why he gets beaten by the Ebony Warrior in a fair fight. Odgrub doing the main quest because he wanted to remove the Elder Scroll from his inventory was a last minute adjustment. Before then I talked about how he had been hunting down Alduin and was finally getting close to beating him, but this almost sounded like Odgrub was trying to save the world and be a hero. We can't have that, he's entirely selfish at this point. The next 10 or so minutes of this video follow Skyrim's main quest. Nothing to do with the Ebony Warrior, merely a chance for some fun Odgrub action, which I felt was lacking from the second Odgrub video until its later half. By having some mindless fun early on, I think it makes the start of this video a lot more enjoyable, as well as giving Lydia some chances to actually be useful or likeable in some way.
You're not as dumb as you.
Next was to meet with the Greybeards, who were atop the tallest mountain. I'm a big fan of Lydia's spontaneous swipe back there. I regularly explain what Odgrub's currently doing to keep viewers aware of what's going on and what to expect next, as I know a lot of people flick through videos or simply aren't always paying attention, and the best way to lose audience retention is for viewers to no longer know what's going on. So in case you're wondering, Odgrub is heading up to the top of the tallest mountain. And here we see the twist on the usual sped up running segments, and a fleeting reminder of the old age plot. His limbs grew heavy, as though he was hot butter scraped over too much bread. Ooh, the running butter joke. I've been getting the hot knife through butter analogy wrong since the Total War series of mine, so I couldn't resist another incorrect butter analogy. Especially with Lord of the Rings regularly being referenced in the Odgrub series already. Was this what it was to grow old? Eventually he could take it no more. He had to fast travel the rest of the way. The first Odgrub video, shown here, used cinematic flybys sparingly, but they got a really positive response in the comments section, so it was something I elaborated on for the sequels. Coming up are some of my favourites from this video, and I think really showcase how beautiful Skyrim can be. High Hrothgar, an ancient monastery, situated above everything else in Skyrim. It guards the only path to the mountain's summit, and is home to some of the wisest beings of the land. The Greybeards, a bunch of old men with beards who like to shout a lot. It is with them that Odgrub must arrange a meeting, if Skyrim is to be safe from the second biggest threat it has ever seen. This is a song from Morrowind, and is one of my least favourite explore themes from the Elder Scrolls, but I think it fits this clumsy, trolly sequence brilliantly. With hindsight, I think the fight with the Greybeards should have been left until after the Peace Council had ended, but by then I had already edited all this together, and it had become one of my favourite parts of the Odgrub series. Eventually, Odgrub tired of this tomfoolery and spoke with their leader. They agreed to arrange a peace council between the leaders of Middle Skyrim. All Odgrub had to do was to... One of the Greybeards, it seemed, had finally grown tired of Odgrub's shit. The Odgrub series uses swear words where they're not necessary for comedic effect, but if you hadn't figured that out then it's because I did a shit job of it. With hindsight, I should have just kept the videos more YouTube friendly by removing those fuckers. He collected his Lydia and left. But not so fast. The Greybeards weren't letting him go that easily. This battle took 4 days to film and to edit. I got hours of footage thinking I was doing a great job, but every day I put it into the video editor and wish I hadn't captured quite so much. It all looks the same. The reason it took 4 days is mostly because I enjoyed endlessly fighting the Greybeards. 3 of them against 1 Odgrub is a surprisingly fun challenge. If you can knock 1 or 2 of them off the edge, then it tips it in your favour, but more often than not it'll end with you either being blasted off the edge yourself, or stuck in a situation like Odgrub finds himself in right now. This is the luckiest clip in the whole video, by the way. I have no control over this at all, and yet the camera angle, the timing, and how it pans out, it couldn't have gone any better. I didn't plan for Lydia to come and to rescue Odgrub or anything. It's just one of those wonderful fluky things that happens if you just get on and play the game enough. I feel like most sidekicks in movies are a bit useless, but this sequence perfectly shows why Odgrub needs a Lydia in his life, and being alone in the same situation is ultimately the Ebony Warrior's downfall. It's poetic, isn't it? Wish I'd done it deliberately. Which was their big mistake. This was it. It was now or never. Now or never. Come on, Odgrub. Odgrub resisted their attacks and turned the tide of the battle. He separated one of the Greybeards from the rest, and soon the mountain was raining men. I do wonder if this fight is the best bit of the video. I don't hold back. For each Odgrub video I've tried to make the best video I can. I can worry about one-upping them with later bits when I get to them, but it was a concern to me that this Greybeard battle could end up better than the one later against the Ebony Warrior. And if it was, what would people think? And soon he brought the fight back down to 1 versus 1. It was a battle for the ages, and their shouts could be heard from across the land. This was a bit made with the YouTube premiere in mind. I imagined it almost being like pantomime where the live chat would shout "Ebony Warrior" whenever he was seen on screen. That didn't happen though. Everybody was still talking about the plot armour as thick as Lydia's thighs line. Which is fine by me. Each video from the Odgrub trilogy has an innuendo-filled sequence, usually implying that Odgrub likes doing it with old men. So it's endearing that, after so much teasing and foreplay, for this video to put its money where its mouth is and to finally show Odgrub getting some hot man-on-man action during this battle's climax. Beautiful. Couldn't have done it better myself. Poor Lydia must be heartbroken though. Poor Lydia. And while she does her best just isn't ever good enough for Odgrub. I don't expect people to pity her at this point. Laughing at the way Odgrub treats her is all part of the fun. For now. but I hope you don't resent her taking up such a large part of an Odgrub video, and when he finally kills her, I'm hoping that people will feel somewhat bad about having laughed at her expense earlier on. Upon a replay of the video, maybe viewers will feel more sympathetic towards her. And that brings us to the conclusion of part 1 of the Making of Odgrub. There are making-ofs for the first 2 Odgrub videos over on Clix Phillip, and once I'm back from holiday, I'll start on part 2 for this third video. Have fun!